I'm back and I've got sound. This is what I get for not paying attention to the comments to try to focus for the first 2 minutes of the video. Thank you for everybody for alerting me that the sound was indeed dead. Derek Stingley signs a record contract extension with the Texans, making $30 million over the course of 3 years. Doesn't kick in for a couple of years. That's one little tweak to this that we'll talk about a little bit. This is more about Derek Stingley than it is the numbers. How did Derek Stingley celebrate this financial windfall that he had?
I had me some crawfish. Yeah, that was about it. So.
Yeah, he had some crawfish, and that's about it. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. This is pretty much what Derek Stingley made a theme in this press conference without trying to make a theme. He didn't go in with an agenda or anything. He's a guy that is just he's a football monk. It's just like Kobe used to be a basketball monk. He just wants to focus on getting better at football. He's obsessed with it. He sets an example for a lot of younger players on the team. That was actually one of the next questions. I got about 8 clips here that I really liked from the press conference. Without being overly cynical, it is important to point out that he did already make $34 million guaranteed on his first contract. So this is not a Horatio Alger story of rags to riches. He's already had a few years to digest making a whole bunch of money. For me, it's more about the commitment the team made to him and how comfortable they are with him as a professional and the way he conducts himself. The next question was on what it means for him to be able to set an example for the players who come after him in Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock.
I think that they just see like just the work you put in is what you're gonna get out of it. I mean, I never really cut corners when it comes to working out, or I don't know, like you work hard at something, and at the end of the day, like what you put in is what you're gonna get out. So I mean, hopefully they can see that and they see it. So I can't wait for them when it's daytime.
Yeah, and I think sometimes leadership by example, it gets used so much that it loses its impact, especially because it's used sometimes in ways that aren't entirely appropriate. When you have a guy who's the best on the team or one of the best on the team, and it's very clear that a lot of it, I mean, you can watch in his game how refined he is, especially for a young player. It sets such a good example for younger guys that there's a path to that. There's a path to getting better, and it doesn't always have to come in motivational slogans, and it doesn't come just with freakish natural ability. This is why guys who are the opposite, guys who are really physically gifted and excel, and maybe they're one of the best players on the team, but they don't actually work all that hard, they can be delightful people and have great personalities, but they're a type of cancer in a locker room because young guys look at that and they think, okay, you either have it or you don't, or I can get to be like him. I can just I can mess around and at some point I'll get good. There is a path to being a much better football player, and it's as simple as just putting in the work. The other side of it, on the monetary side of things, I told Sean Pendergast this morning. I remember my rookie year. I walked in. And, back then we were making good money, but not super. We were making upper middle class money as rookies. Don Davey was a veteran defensive tackle who was making really good money for those days. And it was the day we got our first paycheck, the physical paychecks back in the day. And I sat down next to Don, just trying to be a good rookie. And Donnie was opening up his paycheck and he just put it on the table and he said, "You see this, man? Just keep your mouth shut, keep working hard." And he slid it over and I was like, whoa, crap. Even after FICO and everything that I was just learning about, that's pretty damn impressive. And it's that part of it on the financial side of things, just seeing a guy that's out there practicing every day afterwards, obsessed with it, and seeing the product on the field. I don't need Derek Stingley to ever turn into a master orator that can get up and give great speeches and pep talks and everything, because he's not a guy. He's not overly verbose. He's like Andre Johnson in that regard. On what has changed. This is the one part of the press conference that got me a little bit concerned, but I think there's a little uptick at the end that I feel good about. On what has changed to allow him to stay healthy, and what has it been like to have a long stretch of games where he's been able to stay on the field?
Well, I mean, when it comes to injuries, like you're not really in control of injuries. Like, I mean, certain things you are, but like, I don't know, sometimes stuff just happens. last year being able to play every game, that was really my main goal, and I mean that's my goal every year. So I mean I don't know, like I just work out, and then like the strength staff, they make sure that they know what we're doing, and just go by that. So
all right, this is where I was a little bit. I didn't get the answer I wanted to get. I've wanted to get an answer from Stingley about his ability to stay healthy. That's something like, hey, just like it was with Carlos Correa back in the day, hey, we figured out what the issues were with Carlos Correa's back, a certain warm-up routine that he needed, and then he never had back issues again. And he had other physical issues, obviously, but not the back issues. What I do choose to believe for now to make me feel better about his health long-term is that because he has the support staff, the trainers, the strength coaches working with his father and anybody else they work with, that Stingley, I feel, is pretty much a guy that, especially when it comes to the physical training side of things, they give him a plan and he just goes out and does it. And that they've probably tweaked some things in the way he trains to keep him from having hamstring issues, or it could have been dumb luck. I mean, that's really the only downside to this deal so far, as many of you have noted, is that the health was a concern the first couple of years. This last year, it wasn't a concern at all. But for a guy that has his history in college, you just hope that he stays steady and consistent with this. On what it means to him, on how much this team is investing in him.
I mean, it means a lot that they, allow me to go out there with my coaches, and they taught me this game and at this level, and they believe that I can be somebody to teach the younger people that's on the team. And I'm not gonna talk in front of everybody, but I mean I know how to be a great teammate. So I guess they believe in that. So I mean that's what I believe in. So.
Yeah, the leadership by example thing is huge with him. And I can only say, just from having watched him out at training camp, look, we do our morning show for a couple weeks from training camp, and all I'm doing is sitting there. For the first hour, the sun hasn't even come up yet, and I'm miserable. And by the time I sit through an entire practice, I'm ready to get the hell out of there. And meanwhile, every day after practice and training camp, Derek Stingley is out there, either last year working with Stephon Diggs or working with a rookie wide receiver, working on releases, working on routes and some of the nuances of it. He'll help the receivers out in a way that it's so consistent that lots of guys stay afterwards. But with Stingley, it's been like that since his rookie year. And all those little compounding improvements over and over and over again, it sets a great example. The Kobe story that I always loved was, I cannot remember which player this was, kid that went to the Lakers and thought he was a hard worker and was staying after practice to get some extra shots in. And Kobe was still there. It was him and Kobe in the gym. And the young players started kind of being like, I got dinner plans, but I'm not leaving before Kobe's leaving. And he ended up realizing, oh wow, he had to stay a lot longer than he had planned. Well, Kobe Bryant out there, who was already a made man in a lot of respects, was still out there working on his shots. And not to put Stingley in the Kobe category yet, but that's the leadership by example you want. On what his next goals are, and on the thoughts of adding safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Oh yeah, I mean he gonna bring a whole nother like just like Kamari, like craziness. Like CJ he gonna bring that too, and I think he'll gel well with the rest of us, and we just gonna go out there and have fun.
This part I liked a lot, because if there's a common theme to the guys you have on defense, where they much more embody the swarm mentality and much more take on the personality of D'Amico Ryans when he was a football player, there's some guys that are really extroverted and psychotic, like Kamari Lassiter. I like that he was doing his celebration of bashing his head and trying to quell the demons inside. Bringing in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's an interesting one because he's got 2 years left on the deal. I think that he might be a guy that might just kind of have a shelf life at places. He's got a big personality. I don't know, but I think that D'Amico has that ability to just take guys in as long as they are football junkies, as long as they're obsessed with it, and as long as they have a certain style of play. You can have your Daniil Hunters, who are just super quiet and calm and collected. Derek Stingley, quiet, calm, and collected. And then you can have your guys that are a little bit more psychotic. My wish is that the offense would show more of those elements. The defense, they got a bunch of guys who are habitual line steppers, just stepping right up to the line of what's a legal hit or what's unnecessary roughness, and they've got a lust for violence. I'd like to see that. God help me, if I ever see lust for violence on a scouting report for an offensive lineman, I'm going to demand that the Texans trade up for him to an extreme degree. And I'm not talking about a fake lust for violence like Trevor Penning. I'm talking about a real doing it against actual grown men in a big boy conference, that kind of lust for violence, but not a lawbreaker, just a lust for violence that is tempered by the fact that, I get to take it out on football players instead of society at large. That's the kind of offensive player I want. It doesn't feel like it's too much to ask. This is a good one. How important was it for Derek Stingley to set and increase the value of the position, basically to set the mark for the high water mark for cornerback contracts?
Basically just thinking like just playing football like that, I wouldn't really focus on like how all of that was gonna get done. But I mean, it got done, and I mean, it's cool. Like, the market is different now, but that doesn't really have anything to do with me, really. But I'm just here to play football, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you honestly, I think there's guys that aren't even naturally that money hungry, but they let their egos get involved into having the average per year on the contract define whether or not they're respected or respected enough. And a lot of times you see guys either distance themselves from a franchise or do things that start being motivated by petty crap more so than just wanting to play football, that it's not healthy. It's not healthy for the player himself. It's healthy as for his bank account. But it's also hard to build a team that way because those guys tend to be the same guys that get jealous of their teammates. Those are the guys that, I mean, you see it. You see it sometimes. You'll see in a position group, there'll be a guy that one of his position group mates gets a big contract, and you can almost see it in their eyes that it's kind of eating at them. That's uncomfortable. It's a really uncomfortable spot to be in. I forgot I had Derek Stingley highlights here. I can play a few of these Derek Stingley highlights as I ramble on. But the other big thing is that Mulligetta is his agent, and his dad is very involved in everything. Not Mulligetta's dad, but Derek Stingley's dad. And I think it's allowed Derek Stingley to basically say, okay, I trust my agent. David Mulligetta is one of the best young agents in the game, one of the best agents in football right now. So if they think it's a fair contract, if it makes sense, you get the feeling that Derek Stingley's cool with it. I'll keep playing those after each of these questions. On how much his dad has impacted his career and what it is like to have him as an ongoing partner throughout his life and career.
Yeah, I mean, without my dad, like I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I mean, just with everything, like I wouldn't even be like who I am. Like I don't like everything. Like that's all I can say. I mean, that's that wouldn't be me.
Yeah, whoa, there we go. Oh yeah, let's play these anyway. Biologically accurate. He wouldn't be the same guy he is without his dad. But I think we've talked about this over and over again. Sometimes a close father-son relationship in a football environment can be disastrous. Sometimes it can be awesome. It's worked out really well so far, these guys. I've never heard any stories about Derek Stingley's father being any kind of a distraction or anything. Or you hear stories sometimes about other guys whose parents are calling the head coach into almost like high school type stuff. And it's bad at any level. It's bad in high school. It's bad in college. It's bad in the NFL. You don't hear that. I think they have a really good and productive relationship. As it is with any young athlete, the question is always, okay, is the kid himself hungry for it? Because if the kid's not hungry for it and the father's trying to be domineering and force him into a life, any of you who wrestled in high school know exactly what I'm talking about, because there's some psychotic wrestling parents that basically act like drill sergeants and then their kids end up messed up for life, because that is a brutal and awful sport to be forced into. It doesn't seem like it's like that at all. It seems like Derek Stingley's one of these kids that probably from the time he was 3 years old, just if you roll the ball out, he was going to be happy for hours and just go play sports. So it's nice to see that. Another story about kind of finding a path and just setting an example of, hey, you just see what you want, work really hard, look at others who have done it and accomplished the same thing that you'd like to accomplish, and don't overly mystify it. It doesn't have, whether you're a writer or an artist, a football player. If you want to be commissioner of the NFL, like Roger Goodell, when he was 15 years old, decided he wanted to be commissioner of the NFL. I would submit that there was not a single other 15-year-old, give or take 5 years at that point in history, whose lifelong goal was to be commissioner of the NFL. And you can chart a path that's, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a path that a lot of other people probably wouldn't have taken. The other guy I heard this story from, and I hate to bring it up because he's my doppelganger. He's Ed Helms, which, here, let's do this. Is one. It's, I don't mind it when people say I look like Case Keenum, but Ed Helms, it's rough, man. It's rough. That's what I live with. Hey, you look like the dentist from The Hangover. Ed Helms had a great story about when he was in high school, and he realized he was reading an interview with somebody, and he was thinking about these jobs in Hollywood, and he said, "Oh, people have these jobs. How do I go about getting one?" And he got a job at a film studio somewhere, and basically just volunteered to be a stand-in whenever he could, and just kept accepting every opportunity he ever got. And then one day he would reach the lofty heights of being a guy who looks like a much less famous football player. Call me Case Keenum all you want. Just keep your Ed Helms trash at home. How many doppelgangers do you have? I have, at times, Brian Cushing. Not as much anymore, but if I started taking creatine, but also lost like 20 pounds, people like come up and approach me as if I'm Brian Cushing. Case Keenum, I get a lot. There's also times, depending on my body weight, where when John Rocker was at the height of his notoriety, I looked exactly like John Rocker. Whenever I'd go to Atlanta, people would come up to me and ask for my autograph, and I'd say, "No, I'm not him." And they'd say, "It's cool, man. It's cool. It's cool. Like, I hate all the people you hate too. Subways in New York City hate it. Just gotta come on." And I'm like, "No." And then they'd start getting pissed off, and I'd have to show them my driver's license. They say, "You see, I'm not John Rocker. Damn it." Those are the ones that I can think of at the top of my head. I was dying laughing during this interview. Sting is definitely not used to media. His answers are hilariously dry and simple. This is the thing about Stingley. He's used to being. Sorry, I got distracted by another comment. He's used to the media by now. He's just not naturally a really chatty fella. But the thing I've always been impressed about with him, at least these last couple of years, is that you can tell he's not comfortable talking to the media, and yet I don't think he looks uncomfortable. He doesn't look like somebody who's desperately shy and just wants to shrink up in a corner. You see him in the press conference. He's talking with his hands and everything. He's not concerned with being extremely eloquent about any little thing. You always get the feeling that he would just rather be off doing something related to football or whatever his hobbies and leisure time are. When you saw the pictures that Nico Collins was taking at the Pro Bowl, you could see the video. Nico was zooming around with the camera, and everybody was hamming it up a little bit, and Stingley was just kind of like, yeah, just he does not yearn for the superficial things. And as a GM, it's got to be really nice to give a boatload of money to somebody that you know for a fact it's not going to affect them, because their wants and desires seem to be pretty simple, and a lot of them seem to revolve around football, and that's exactly what you want. That's what you're trying to figure out this time of year, is trying to figure out whether some of these rookies are guys that, all right, after they get a boatload of money, still have something to care about, or was their dream just to get the boatload of money? Are you accusing me of being overly verbose? Damn it. I accept it, but I mean, it's kind of my job. Jeez. Please like, subscribe. I got to get around to Cam Robinson, and I will. And you guys know my theories about the offensive line right now. I'm more optimistic than many. I'm not idiotically optimistic about it, but I've got theories, damn it. So please like, subscribe, all the rest of it.